All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Nicole, and welcome back to our English class. It's fantastic to see you ready to go for our third day of exploring the fascinating world of word stress. Now, give yourselves a pat on the back for sticking with it. Mastering word stress is a huge step towards sounding more natural and, of course, confident when you speak English. Now let's quickly jog our memories about what we have covered so far. On day one, we kick things off by defining what word stress actually is. Remember how it's about making one syllable in a word stand out more than the others? We talked about how important this is because putting the stress on the wrong syllable can sometimes make a word hard to understand or even change its meaning entirely. So it's like a secret code with an English pronunciation that helps native speakers understand each other quickly. Then, yesterday on day two, we really got into one of the biggest clues for word stress, which is the part of speeches. It is a word stress pattern. One of the word stress patterns, we discovered that words can be pronounced differently depending on whether they are a noun, they are a verb, or even an adjective. Think about words like permit, which is the noun, like a school permission slip, versus permit, which is the verb, meaning to allow something. Or another example would be produce, which is fresh fruits and vegetables, produce, and versus another version, which is produce to make something, which is the verb equivalence of it. Okay, we saw how these shifts in stress are super common and vital for clear communication. So it's like words have different moods depending on this grammatical role. Now for today, day three, we are leveling up even further. We're going to dive into another extremely helpful pattern for predicting word stress, which is on suffixes. You know, those little groups of letters we add to the end of a word to change its meaning or grammatical function. Like this one, tion or sion, ick, ology, able, all those things, all those suffixes. Well, it turns out these suffixes often have a powerful influence on where the stress falls in the word. They can either attract the stress to themselves, push it to the syllable right before them, or even stay neutral. Now, understanding how suffixes affect stress is like getting a cheat sheet for pronunciation. For example, consider the word economic. Notice how the stress is on the syllable right before the ick. So, or how about the words ending in tion, like organization or information. The stress almost always lands on the syllable immediately before the tion sound. So knowing these patterns means that you won't have to guess as much, which makes your English sound much more natural and understandable. So we'll be going through several common suffix patterns today, breaking down the rules with clear examples, and most importantly, we'll get plenty of opportunities to practice. So these patterns start feeling automatic when you speak. So it's basically I want as much as possible. I want you for these topic as well as on the previous topics that we've covered so far to be part of your system so that you can use it, um, as I've mentioned, as automatic when you speak. Okay? All right. So this is a first slide on suffixes. So let's take a moment to step back and appreciate something incredible about English, which is even when it seems unpredictable on the surface, there are hidden rhythms or patterns underneath, which can guide how we speak. One of the most helpful clues we have is our topic for today, or our focus for today, which is on suffixes. Now, suffixes, as I've mentioned, are endings we add to words, like the ones that you are seeing on your screen now. These often tell us what kind of word it is, but more importantly, for today's lesson, they also help us know where to put the stress. So, if you've ever looked at a long English word and thought, "Where do I even start to say this?" then this is for you. The secret: look at the suffix. Okay. Let's walk through some of the most common suffixes one by one and explore the rules they follow, not just with logic, but with the rhythm, with sound, and even with story. Okay, let's start with the first one, of course. Tion or Sion, which is both pronounced as shon. Now, here, the stress pattern is that you stress before the suffix. Okay, stress before the suffix. Meaning you stress the stressed syllable is before tion or before sion. Okay, say for example, information. Again, information. Look at its IP transcription. What's the tip I gave you yesterday when it comes to looking at the IP transcription? Is that if I'm sorry, is that you can how you can check where is the stressed syllable is by looking at the apostrophe. Again, looking at the apostrophe. Usually, since the symbol of stressed syllable here, the symbol of stress in general in IP transcription is apostrophe. We will look at that. That's our guide when it comes to stressing a particular syllable in a word. Now, how do we recognize, how do we check, how do we know where um which of these syllables are which of the syllables is stressed? We try to see the apostrophe of in the IP transcription, and the pattern usually it goes right after the apostrophe. That's the stressed syllable. Okay, right after the apostrophe, that is where the stressed syllable is. Okay, say for example, you look at information. Again, information. The stressed syllable is may. Why? Because the apostrophe is right before it. And again, the stressed syllable in a word, if you look at the IP transcription, it is after the apostrophe. Okay, and after the apostrophe in the word and information and its IP transcription is may. So our stressed syllable here is may. Okay, and we go back with the stress pattern or the rule for the suffix, the first suffix tion or sion. Here, we stress just before the suffix. We stress just before the tion or sion. In the word information, we use the tion suffix. And what is the syllable right before it? It is may. So it's the same with it's a IPA transcription. So it's consistent, meaning that yes, may is the stressed syllable in the word information. Okay? Meaning of this word is we understand that this is knowledge. Okay? So again, when it comes to suffix tion or sion, we stress the syllable before the suffix or before it. Okay? Next to that is for a moment. Next to that is, or maybe I can give you some more examples. Maybe let's try to think about more example words that uses the suffix tion. Education. Okay, let's have education. Education, it uses the suffix tion. And hear me when I say it. Listen to me when I say it. Education. Again, education. Which of the education? Which of the four syllables did I stress? It's the third syllable. And the third syllable is right before tion. Okay, that's how we see it. Let's have maybe sion, decision. Yeah, decision. There's three syllables, and the second syllable is where I stressed it. Decision. Again, decision. It is right before sion. Okay. Lastly, we have another word would be invitation. Again, invitation. There's four syllables here. And the stressed syllable, it should be before the suffix. The suffix is tion. So what's the syllable before the tion? Invitation. It's te. Again, te with a clear diphthong. No? The diphthong is a. It's like in the may in information. In may, which is a stressed syllable, there's a diphthong there. And again, what's a diphthong? As I've mentioned a couple of times, plenty of times in our previous sessions, diphthongs are diphthongs are when a vowel sound smoothly glides to another vowel sound. Basically, vowel sound plus vowel sound, we will get a diphthong. And in information, most specifically in may, the stressed syllable, the diphthong is a. E and I. And a vowel E and another vowel I, they are combined to produce a one sound, which is a. Okay, that's a diphthong. All right, let's continue with well, yeah, maybe just a quick reminder with tion or sion. They are all long usually, no? Uh, the ones I've mentioned, information, education, invitation, decision, they are usually long. But if you find a tion and go one step back, that's where the heartbeat of the word is. When I say heartbeat, that is not the syllable, but the stressed word. The stressed syllable in the word. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next. What do you call that? Let's move on to the next one. But going back to the first, usually, as I've noticed and as I've also searched, as I've also know and understand, the pattern, stress before the suffix, is consistent. It is also predictable and, of course, easy to apply once you start noticing it because it's just right before the suffix. Okay? When it comes to the suffix ic or ic, we stress before the suffix also. Okay? We stress also right before the ic. Say, for example, we have here graphic, which has only which only has two syllables. So since I've mentioned that it is not, since it's mentioned that it is stressed before the suffix, meaning that it's not the suffix itself. So ik is not an option here, and we only have one syllable left, which is graph, meaning that that is our stressed syllable. And you can also see it in the, how do you call it? You can also see it in the IP transcription where there is an apostrophe right before graph. Okay? Meaning that that is really the stressed syllable here. So we say it as graphic. Again, graphic. Alright? Graphic meaning visual. That's the definition of it. Alright. That is for graphic, but you'll also hear this in words. What other words with ick? Maybe historic. No, three syllables. We have three syllables. So historic. Historic. Okay. The second one sounds more natural and fluent, right? Historic. Whereas we try with putting the stress on the first syllable. Historic. No, historic. Or the ick itself, historic. No, that sounds unnatural. The perfect one would be historic. Stress on the second syllable. Because again, the rule for suffix ick is that we stress before the suffix. We stress before the ick. And the one that is before ick in the word historic is tor. Okay? All right. Another word would be, we have another three syllables would be athletic. Okay? Athletic, we can do that. There are three syllables in there. Athletic. Okay? Again, the rule, stress before the suffix. What's before ick? It's let. Okay? Let. So we stress on that. Athletic. Again, athletic. All right. So the great thing about ick is that it makes your speaking feel dynamic and sharp in a way, but the stress rule is still simple. Just look one syllable to the left, okay? Or one step back, just like the first one. All right. We have the third syllable, suffix, which is ity or ity. Here, the rule says stress on third from the end. Again, stress on the third syllable from the end. So we step back 2 times, basically. Say, for example, in the word, what do we have here? Responsibility. Again, responsibility. So that's quite a long word. There's six syllables. Responsibility. Yeah, there are 6 syllables in total. Let's go back to the rule. We stress on the third from the end. So we step back third from the end. So we have, so since the suffix is a bit longer and it changes the shape of the word, so when you add ity to a word, you're creating something abstract, which is an idea, or a quality, and the stress patterns shift accordingly. Now, in responsibility, we don't emphasize t or li. We go to the third syllable from the end, which is bill. Try clapping it out. Responsibility. Okay? We go third syllable from the end. So the first syllable from the end is T, the second syllable from the end is E, and the third syllable from the end is bill. And that's our stressed syllable. That's where the energy lives. We will say it again. Responsibility. Again, responsibility. All right? Do we get that? That's quite a long word, but we immediately got what the stressed syllable is by looking at its rule, which is stressed on third from the end. Now, what do we mean by responsibility? It is our duty. Another example of which for this particular suffix ity would be ability. We have ability, which has 4 syllables all in all. Now, stress on the third from the end. First syllable, T. Second syllable, li. Third syllable from the end, B. So our stressed syllable is B. So we say it as ability. Again, ability. Another word, sincerity. Sincerity, yeah. So we try to apply the rule. First, third from the end, first syllable T, second syllable re, and third syllable C. Again, C. So we say it as sincerity. Again, sincerity. All of them carry their stress in the third from last position, just like other words like identity or flexibility. Okay? The rule is that don't just go to the end of the word. Count back 3 syllables and land there. Okay? That is for ity. Fourth suffix, we have here ikal. Again, ikal. So the rule says here that we stress on the third syllable from the end. It's the same with ity. No, same syllable. Same stressed syllable rule. So, when it comes to ikal, we have an example, biological. Biological. There are 5 syllables in total. Now, the suffix behaves a lot like ity. Ikal extends the word and adds a soft rolling finish. No? But the stress doesn't go on ikal. It lands 3 syllables from the end. So we count ikal as 1. And then second syllable right before from the end is biology. G. Okay? G. And then I'm sorry. Yeah. The second syllable from the end is G, and then the third syllable is law. Again, Lo. So we stress on lo. We say it as biological. Again, biological. So in biological, the stress falls on lo. And once you see the pattern, you'll hear it everywhere, like historical, mathematical, grammatical, theatrical. Now, the ikal almost acts like a gentle curtain. It closes the word, but it doesn't take the spotlight. Say, for example, we've already did an example on biological, which means life related. But no, we'll look at another example that is mentioned earlier, which is let's look at grammatical, maybe grammatical, which has four syllables. We apply the rule stress on third from the end. So we have kal as the first syllable, t as the second syllable, and ma as the third syllable. So we stress on ma, grammatical. Again, grammatical. So think of the stress as a spotlight. It shines on law in biological, not the ending. Okay? All right, let's move on to the fifth one. We have E. We stress on the final syllable. That's the rule. Say, for example, here, employee. Again, employee. So our stress syllable is E. No? What do we mean by employee? It is worker. So we flip the pattern here. Some suffixes are so strong they pull the stress to themselves. E is one of those. Okay? So E is our first suffix here that we put the stress on. So in employee, the stress doesn't come early. Instead, the word rises toward the end. Employee. Again, employee. So it finishes with a punch. That final syllable is where the voice lands loud and clear. So this is true in many everyday words like trainee, escapee, interviewee, nominee. No? All those E suffixes are all stressed syllable for that particular words. Okay? They all end on a high note, literally. So imagine your voice lifting up like a balloon at the end. That's how E feels. Okay? All right. Sixth one, ear. So ear, same rule with the previous one. We stress on the final syllable, meaning we stress on the suffix itself. Okay? So for example, we have engineer. Again, engineer. Like E in the suffix, like E, the suffix draws the stress all the way to the end. So say it with me, engineer. Again, engineer. That rising intonation signals the word is reaching its peak at the final syllable. Okay, near. So we hear the same pattern in volunteer, pioneer, mountaineer. So these words often describe people, and the stress highlights their role or identity. Okay, it makes sense, right? The word builds and builds until it lands on who the person is. So the makes, the ending makes the speaker rise with resolve. Rise and resolve with confidence, basically, what I mean. So let's try to bring it together. Each suffix group has its own rhythm, its own personality. For tion and ik, we are politely pushing the stress back. For a t and ikal, we stretch the word and ask you to count 3 syllables from the end. Okay? And lastly, for E and we step up and claim the spotlight at the very end. Or basically, we let the suffix itself be highlighted. So by tuning into these patterns, you're doing more than memorizing rules. You're learning how to hear English differently. So you're listening not just for meaning, but for music. And when you speak with the right stress, you speak with clarity, you speak with fluency, and as well as presence. So let's keep practicing and let these rhythms sink into your voice. The more you say them, the more they'll become second nature to you. Ready? Let's put this into motion. Okay? Let's have a practice time. All right, everyone. Our little brain friend has returned, and that sign can only mean one thing. I've mentioned it's time to activate everything we have been learning. So it's practice time, basically. This is your signal to shift from learning to doing, from recognizing stress patterns to applying them with your own voice. Just like a muscle here, your pronunciation needs exercise. So this isn't just practice, this is your brain doing push ups, your tongue running laps, your ears sharpening like athletes in training. So here's what we're going to do. I'll guide you through a set of pronunciation tasks, and you are ready to listen, to record, and feel where the stress naturally falls in each, how do you call that? In each word. So remember, we are not just going for speed, we're going for for control, clarity, and rhythm. So sit up, warm up those mouths, and let's get back into groove. Of course, your speaking voice is your most powerful learning tool. So let's use it. Okay. All right. We have here the first item for a quick drill. This lab follows strict medical protocols. So let's try to remember the rule for cal. Cal suffix. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, not cal, but ikal. Okay? Ikal. All right? For a moment. So that is ikal. That's the suffix in the word medical. So let's start here with the word medical. So I'm gonna say it again. Listen to how it sounds. Medical. Again, medical. So where do we hear the stress? On the first syllable, med. That's because of the suffix ikal. And here's the rule again. When a word ends in ikal, the stress usually lands on the third syllable from the end. And the third syllable from the end happens to be med. Okay? In medical, there are only three syllables, so we stress the first. Basically, that's much easier to use the rule. But in longer words like biological or mathematical, you'll hear the stress shift deeper into the word, like law in biological and ma in mathematical. So the ikal part is never stressed. It always sounds gentle and, of course, light, like a curtain closing the word. So that's on ikal. Medical, most specifically. Let's move on to the second sentence. The movie had a very dramatic ending. Now listen carefully to dramatic. It ends in IC and its suffix is a clear stress right before the ending. Okay? Dramatic. Again, dramatic. One more time. Dramatic. Where do I go? Oh, yeah. This one. Dramatic. Now remember the rule for dramatic when it comes to syllable stress. It ends in X, so that suffix is a clear stress rule. Stress falls just before ik. So here the stress is on the second syllable from the end, as well as in the front, in the start, at the start, I'm sorry. Dramatic, not dramatic, but dramatic. Okay? The energy rises before the ending. Right? Okay. All right. We try to ask learners to identify other ikal. Mystical. Okay? The stress syllable is missed. All right? That's for ik. And not, oh no, not, all right. Wrong word because it ends with kal. Maybe we have realistic. Okay? Again, the stress is right before the stressed the syllable itself. Okay? Let's go back to the rule for ik. The stress is before the suffix. So the stress is before ik in realistic. Okay, listic. So list is our stressed syllable, realistic. Okay, the energy rises before, right before the ending. For dramatic, we have, was it dramatic? Yeah, the movie had a very dramatic ending. So the stressed syllable here is ma. Okay, ma, because it's right before ik. Okay, all right. Next sentence we have, her father works as an electrical engineer. Again, her father works as an electrical engineer. Now, this sentence has two brilliant stress patterns in one. First, electrical, it ends in ikal, right? For a moment. For a moment, everyone. It ends with ikal, or the word electrical. So, as we mentioned earlier, when it comes to ikal, it means the stress falls three syllables. Again, three syllables from the end. So we say it as electrical. Again, electrical. Or we focus on lek with stress on that particular syllable. It happens to be the second syllable. So lek. The ending ikal never takes the main beat. So it softens the word but never leads it. That's for ikal. How do you call that? Ikal suffixes. Okay. Now let's look at engineer. The word ends in ear, and this suffix does the opposite. It pulls the stress to the very end. That's engineer. So we say engineer with the voice clearly rising on the first, not first, but on the final syllable. So this is a confident upward finish, perfect for words that describe roles or people, like volunteer, pioneer, musketeer. I don't know. But you can point out how this in the sentence. One word like electrical flows softly toward the end, while the next, how do you call that? The next, oh, mm, what am I going to say? Yeah, it's about the rule. Let me check on the rule, okay? Again, the rule for ear, we stress on the final syllable. So we stress on ear. So, and when I say engineer, I'm referring to, or I'm going to focus on ear because that's the rule. Okay. When it comes to electrical, lek is the second syllable, and I've mentioned that it should be right before the suffix. Okay. All right. So you can point out how in the sentence one word like electrical flows softly toward the end, while the next engineer rises sharply together with they create school contrast, and that's what gives um English its rhythm. Okay? All right. All right. That's for that one. So we have, I'm gonna highlight also electrical because that's also another word with a suffix, clearly suffix here. Okay? For a moment. Okay. So we in this sentence we have electrical and engineer. Again, electrical and engineer. So the rule, looking back at the rule, I'm sorry, keep looking back. When it comes to ikal, we stress on the third from the end, and when it comes to ear, or near, we stress on the final syllable or the syllable itself. Okay? Or the suffix itself, basically. Ikal, stress on the third from the end. So here, electrical, the third syllable from the end, we have first kal, second e, third, and third is, wait, electrical. So the second syllable I mean is three, third syllable is lek. So lek here is our stressed syllable. All right? That's electrical engineer. Okay? So you can point out how in this sentence, one word, which is electrical, flows softly towards the end, while the next, you know, engineer rises sharply. Together they create contrast and have, give what gives English its rhythm. Like you can say in this sentence, she gave a detailed explanation of the project. Okay? That's for this one. That's for this group. Okay? Alright. So here, this is how do you call it? We say engineer with the voice clearly rising on the final syllable. So this is a confident and unfinished piece. Perfect for words that describe roles or people, like volunteer, maybe pioneer, musketeer. All those things, all those roles. I mean, okay. So you can point out how in this sentence one word electrical flows softly towards the end while the next engineer rises sharply. Together they create contrast, and that's how what gives English its rhythm, I guess. Fourth sentence, she gave a detailed explanation of the project. Okay, here we go. We see the classic tion suffix, and it's one of the easiest basic patterns. Okay, that's it. All right. Okay, that's for she gave detailed explanation for the project. Here we see the dress, tion suffix. Okay. All right. So for explanation, the syllables are explanation because it says that it's right before tion. So maybe it's that the one that's a part of the swimsuit. But yeah, that's that. Okay. All right. So she gave a detailed explanation so that it won't be very weird to you as much as possible. How do you call that? She went on that. The suffix is on point. Sorry. But that's that. Okay. So she gave a detailed explanation of the project. Here we see the classic tion suffix. And it's one of the easiest trend. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's on. She gave detailed explanation. So in explanation, the syllables are nay. Okay, because again the rule says stressed before the not second syllable, but stressed before that, or you can put something to enclose your space. Okay. All right. So stress falls directly before tion. So that gave me a detailed, again, that gave us a detailed explanation of the project. So here we see the classic tion suffix. Okay. So in explanation, the syllables are explanation. We hear the same stress on nay, not on tion. That's because tion is never emphasized. It's like a silent signpost that says, "Don't stress me, stress the others." Okay. All right. Okay, let's have. I think this is the last one. Let me look at it. Not really, but yeah. The word is ability, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. Again. Did I plug it correctly? For a moment, let me see. Okay. Let me see. Yeah. Again, let's look at the rule for that. It's stressed on the third from the very end. So since there's ability in there, we try to stress on the third syllable from the end. Ability. There are four of them. Okay? Ability. So bell. Okay? Alright. That's it. So in explanation, the syllables are explanation. We hear the stress on made, not on lion. So not on lion, not on tion. So that's because tion is never emphasized. Okay. All right. Okay. So here we see the classic don't suffix and one of the easiest patterns to remember. Stress that falls directly before tion. Okay. This she gave a detailed explanation of the project. Here we can see them doing some challenges, I guess. No? Okay. So it's one of the easiest patterns to remember. Stress falls before directly them. Okay? Alright. So the time management is a valuable academic piece. Okay? Alright. For a moment. So that's that, okay? Okay? Alright. We see that one. Alright. Okay. So here it says she gave time management is valuable ability in the workplace. So she gave a true management, not true. Time management is a valuable ability in the workplace. Maybe not really bound for TAO and only. Try to explore more. Okay. So that's that. She gave a detailed explanation of the paper. We forgot maybe that one, okay? Alright. Okay. That's on ability. The ability. Okay? Alright. That's ability. Again, the rule it says since our suffix is it, our rule to follow should be it, stress on the third from the end. Okay? So that's let's look at abilities. Stress on the third syllable right from the end. Ability. There are three of them, and we need to kill them three based on this sentence. Okay. Okay. All right. We have I guess G. So for in explanation, the syllables are explanation. We are the stress on K, not A N. U. That's all CA. Okay. All right. Okay. That's that. That's another. That's another way to use that. Okay. All right. All right. So that's that. That's how you really recognize these patterns when it comes to word stress and when it comes to suffixes. Okay, that's for the fourth. I think this is the fourth one. The time management is a valuable ability. Again, ability in the workplace. Okay, so the pattern is extremely common in academic and formal English. So you can think of words like what other words that has it in it. I think this is the, I don't know. Let me see, huh? So this is the fifth. I'm sorry for that. This is the fifth example. Okay? Fifth sentence. Now again, the rule for this one is we stress backward. We stress how do you call that? We stress three syllables from the end. Was it three syllables? Let's look at the how do you call that? Let's look at the rules. The word is ability, so the suffix is it, and here we stress on third from the end. The first, of course, is wait, did I get it right? Yeah, let's look at that. So this suffix it often creates abstract nouns in a way that they tend to focus on things that you cannot touch, but you can grow, you can demonstrate. Like for example, ability, no, or responsibility. Look at that. Flexibility, sincerity, opportunity, all of them follow the same rhythm. Third syllable from the end is trust. So the bill and ability is trust. The C, is it C? Yeah, no. It's still on bill for responsibility, bill on flexibility, and C in sincerity. Okay? You can guide students to count the syllables and find that hidden beat, like tapping your foot to a song. Once they find it, they can say along academic words more naturally and, of course, fluently. Okay? That is for this week. Okay. All right. I think that's the last one. Is it? Let me just check. I have a copy here. So time management here is valuable ability in the workplace. That's a sentence maybe. Is it? Yeah, it is. We've already focused on that and count the syllables based on the rule. Okay? Alright. Next to that, and the last one, I think, last sentence, the employee asked for what? Asked for a day off next week. Okay. So this means to say employee, not what? Employee or employee. Okay? Focus on ploy. Okay? Employee. So why? Because some words or words that end in E usually describe the person who receives an action. Someone affected by something, an employee is someone who is employed, a trainee is being trained, a nonsense, sorry for that, that's not the word. A nominee, maybe. A nominee is being nominated. So this pattern helps you to distinguish between doers and receivers in a way that an employer does the hiring, but an employee gets hired. So we stress on the last syllable here as it tells you who is in the receiving end. Okay? Receiving end. But yeah, this pattern helps you distinguish between doors and receivers, and an employer does the thing, but an employee gets hired. We stress on the first syllable to tell you where you are going. Okay? Alright. That's for the idea of the suffix E. Okay? E. We stress on the E itself or the suffix chestnut. Okay? An employee does an employer does the hiring, but an employee gets hired. Okay? That's the difference between the two. So have learners say both employer and employee side by side. They'll be hearing the whole meaning on their own. Okay? Alright. That's for this one, employee. Let's move on to another set of suffixes. Let's start with this one. I've or if. Sorry, I pronounced it wrong. If. It usually depends on the word itself. So here, the rule for stress pattern is that we stress typically on the third syllable from the end. It's the same with it. What other words or what other suffixes was it? No, not it, but yeah, it and ikal. Okay? It's the same with this one. If. We stress typically on the third from the end. Say for example, productive, you'll notice that the stress is on duck. Okay? The third syllable from the end. That's because words ending in if tend to push the stress slightly earlier in the word. So we say productive, not productive, or productive. No, not like that. It's in the middle where the sound or the phone came. You know? So yeah, that's productive. You'll hear the same pattern as attractive, where the stress syllable is attractive, or creative, the stress syllable is A. Okay? So this pattern helps give the word its flow and strength and encourage, of course, students to feel where the energy lands. always before the if. Okay? Next is al. It often third syllable from the end with some exceptions. Third, one third, often third from end. Okay? Example, political. Another would be um what another word? Maybe logical. Was it? Yeah. Al. Logical. Again, logical. Critical. Maybe critical. We have critical. Political also. Okay? Like an example of the example you can see on the screen. Political. So this plays the stress on the second syllable. Lee, that's mom. Okay, thank you so much. That's because of the al suffix, which usually causes stress along three syllables from the end. Okay? Logical, logical. That's on law. I'm sorry, law. Not ano. The suffix al. Okay? Alright. So almost all words follow this third from and pattern. There are some exceptions. So practice helps learners build a natural feel for it. Okay? Encourage your students to we try to encourage you as much as possible to exaggerate the rhythm. Political. Okay? The stress is centered in the middle, not at the start or end. Okay? Alright, that's the rule for that. Alright. Let's have maybe the next one, us. Okay. Us. Again, us. The rule is usually third from the end. The stress is, where the stress is for us. So, for example, adventurous, which means full of excitement or boldness. The word adventurous places stress on ven, which is the third syllable from the end. So that's because us is soft, non-stressed, and then the power of the word is earlier. Adventurous, again, adventurous. The pattern appears also in generous, mysterious, cautious. Okay? Ask learners to feel how the word rolls on their tongue and, a strong pulse at the center, softening at the end. Okay? You often do third syllable from the end, like, for example, dependent, which means to rely on, needing support. So here we have dependent, which stresses the middle syllable, pen. Again, the ending is unstressed, so we place emphasis on the syllable before it. Okay? This is especially helpful for learners who confuse nouns and adjectives. Listening to for where the stress falls can quickly vary what role in the sentence. Okay? Us, usually third from the end. Okay? Next to that is end. End for argument. Okay? Here the rule says stress usually earlier in the word. So stress, she's stressed and when it comes to participating in the work. So yes, words ending in ment tend to keep the stress further unwound. Okay? Alright. So that's that. What are ending? So that's for what word was it? Dependent. So again, often third from the end. That's for end or and. Dependent. So we stress on that. Dependent. Pendant. So we stress on the dependent. So words ending in ment tend to keep the stress farther forward in the word. So in development, we stress vel in development. No, it's far away from the suffix itself, which is end. So this is important because learners often guess that long words need stress near the end. But ment is low and quiet, so it lets the main thing carry the stress earlier on. Another example of that is argument, management, improvement, all those words. Okay? Next to that is meant. Earlier we have end, now we have meant. Maybe improvement or management, no? That's how they usually do this here. So, yeah. Let's just, focus on that. So, as much as possible here, relax your voice at the end of these words meant because you don't need to shout, no? It's not a shoutable word, shoutable. You don't shout at the when we say a word, except for it's when necessary, like screaming, maybe. Okay? So here we don't shout, we support. Again, the rule, often third syllable from the end. Okay? The chosen word would be what? A respondent? No? This one surprised many learners because even though the word has four syllables, we say comfortable. The stress is on the first or second syllable. Not second, but the first, the suffix, but you look at it not only for the first time. Okay? Next and last one is able or I. Wait. Yeah, able or able. So here, what is this? So here, the rule says often third syllable from the end. So that's where we put the stress in, like in comfortable. Okay? This one surprises many learners because even though the word has four syllables, we say comfortable. The stress is on the first syllable. That's how my parents do it. Okay? Alright, the day. So English often release for ease, but the stress pattern stays the same. Okay? Okay? Alright. So another word for that we have here comfortable. So another word would be flexible, maybe. Reliable or possible. Okay? We bring it all together. Suffixes are more than just word endings, they're clues. Okay? Alright. Is it true? So, okay. Well, that's okay. English often reduces syllables for ease, but the stress pattern stays the same. Okay? Enjoy and encourage your learners maybe to, how do you call that? Volunteer. Okay? Alright, so that's that. Alright, so we try to bring it all together. Suffixes are more than just words endings here. Okay? We have they are most likely, as I've mentioned, they are like clues. They hint at what the word means, how it functions in a sentence, and most importantly, for today, where the stress goes. So when your students get used to these suffix families, they start making smart guesses about new words, and that's how fast call that. That's how fast get used to these suffix families. Okay. Okay, so they start making smart guesses about new words. That's how fluent speaking that is. Okay, all right. So let's help your learners, your students, your classmates, your friends, not just memorize these, but feel them, say them, hear them. We should move on to them. I don't know, but yeah, let's just do that. Okay, that's for the I don't know, but yeah, another couple. Okay, another duo mean. All right. So far, not so far, but for suffixes, we've already talked about a lot of stress patterns. We have shon, ik, iti, ika, I, ear. So that's that. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's how you usually say. We usually have it. That's the first set of suffixes. The second set is this: if, al, us, and or and, meant or, meant, and then able or able. Okay, those are the suffixes. Okay, all right. And I think that wraps up our. Or maybe we can do some exercises first. No? Our team, our energetic brain basket is back with its favorite words, practice time. So that means it's your turn to take the lead, to make the words your own, and to apply everything we have been working on. So you've seen the patterns, those suffixes that I mentioned earlier. They all guide your voice. They help you know when to rise, where to pause, and how to carry meaning, not just through vocabulary, but through sound. So we're not just learning English here, we're learning how to perform it. So now it's time to go from knowing to doing. You'll see each sentence, listen to the rhythm, feel the beat in your mouth maybe, and speak it with clarity, okay? Repeat it slowly, then naturally, and then imagine you are in a real conversation. Own the stress, own the flow. Remember, confident pronunciation comes from rhythmic repetition, not perfection. So you're building muscle memory with every word they say. Let's go our voices. Let's get our voices. Come on, okay? For their ears to be tuned and their focus be love strong. Their focus would be strong, okay? Because this brain is cheering you on, so am I. Okay? Alright. So let's have the first one maybe. The island is an adventurous place to explore. So let's start with the word adventurous. The word ends in os, and here's the golden rule. Os endings never carry the stress. So instead, the stress falls on the third syllable from the end. So say it out loud. Adventurous. Four syllables count backward from the end. Os first, tor second, third, ben. So that's where your voice rises. That's the beat. Think of other O's words like generous, mysterious, nervous. They all follow the same melody, soft at the end and strong in the middle. So this consistent pattern makes these words easier to say once learners you do tune their asses to it. Okay. Second, he has a very creative way of solving problems. Okay. All right. That's creative. It ends with if, and the suffix often causes, how do you call that? Causes stress to fall the third syllable. Okay. All right. You can do that. So here, it's very creative. Creative. It ends with if, and the suffix often causes stress to fall the third syllable from the end. So in this case, it means the second syllable overall. Creative. That's the middle syllable. A carries the stress. Okay. All right. Third, we noticed strong development in her speaking skills. So let's take a look at the development word. This word ends in ment, and that suffix is one of the quiet closers in English. It never carries the stress. Okay, so where does it fall? Say it with me. Development. That vowel in the middle is where the energy goes. Third syllable from the end. Okay, you'll find this pattern in so many abstract nouns like management, argument, improvement. These words are about things that happen or ideas we measure. The ment helps from the noun, I mean. But yeah, okay? You'll find this pattern in so many abstract nouns, as I mentioned. Okay, in the sentence, the development tells us the progress. The progress is happening, and that holds rising address upon. Okay? All right. Next sentence. That couch looks really comfortable. Okay? That couch looks really comfortable. We've already mentioned about comfortable. So to make it short, since it's able or able, the rule says third syllable from the end, and that's comf. Okay, so we say it as comfortable. Again, comfortable. Okay. Next to this is the mayor delivered an important political message on TV. Political, we've already talked about that also. The stressed or the suffix here is kal. Okay. Again, kal. That's the second. That's the how do you call that? That's the word for today, and then the stress syllable is not stress syllable, but the remaining to pay is al. The suffix is al, so we should focus on that al. Sorry, yeah, that one al. So stress on the root or base word for happiness or ness. Then stress on the base noun for hood. No, this is not it. I think yeah. Ship for stress on the face noun, and then logi for before the suffix itself, crazy before the shop. Okay, all right, that's it. So this is one of English most reliable stress rules. Okay, the ikals ending pairs the words softly, like the third from Lascelles Central. Fall. Here you'll hear these words in like central. Okay, all right, that's logi, and then Crazy, which is stress before the suffix. Like in democracy, the stress syllable is mock. Democracy. Okay. All right. I think that's the last one. Okay. So, yes. All right. Okay. So that's a wrap up for today, everyone. We've reached the end of our word stress journey. Maybe we'll practice a little bit of that on our next session about word stress, just for me to check if you're really following with me and if you get or you're able to grasp the concepts. Okay, you've all done an amazing job from understanding what stress is on day one to seeing how parts of speech affect it on day two, and finally mastering how suffixes influence stress. Today, you've built a solid foundation. This knowledge is super important for clear, natural sounding English. Now, while we're done with word stress for now, the learning continues, of course, next week. We'll level up and dive into sentence stress as much as possible after I do some practices, no, some short practices about word stress, specifically more on suffixes, just to check if you really followed what I've discussed for today and the previous sessions. Okay. So this we will go over that. So keep practicing what you've learned about individual word stress. Listen for it. Try it out when you speak, and you'll be perfectly ready for sentence stress. Okay? Great work today, everyone, and see you next week. See you next Monday. Goodbye, and have a great rest of the night.